Section 80 of Reviews by Oscar Wilde. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Leon Meyer. Reviews by Oscar Wilde. Edited by Robert Ross. Section 80. One of the Bibles of the World. Pall Mall Gazette, February 12, 1889. The Kalevala is one of those poems that Mr. William Morris once described as the Bibles of the world. It takes its place as a national epic beside the Homeric poems, the Nibelung, the Shahnameth, and the Mahabharata, and the admirable translation just published by Mr. John Martin Crawford is sure to be welcomed by all scholars and lovers of primitive poetry. In his very interesting preface, Mr. Crawford claims for the Finns that they began earlier than any other European nation to collect and preserve their ancient folklore. In the 17th century we meet men of literary tastes, like Palmskjöld, who tried to collect and interpret the various national songs of the Finn dwellers of the north. But the Kalevala proper was collected by two great Finnish scholars of our own century, Zacharias Topelius and Elias Linrot. Both were practicing physicians, and in this capacity came in frequent contact with the people of Finland. Topelius, who collected 80 epical fragments of the Kalevala, spent the last 11 years of his life in bed, afflicted with the fatal disease. This misfortune, however, did not damp his enthusiasm. Mr. Crawford tells us that he used to invite the wandering Finnish merchants to his bedside, and induce them to sing their heroic poems, which he copied down as soon as they were uttered, and that whenever he heard of a renowned Finnish minstrel, he did all in his power to bring the songman to his house, in order that he might gather new fragments of the national epic. Linrot traveled over the whole country, on horseback, in reindeer sledges, and in canoes, collecting the old poems and songs from the hunters, the fishermen, and the shepherds. The people gave him every assistance, and he had the good fortune to come across an old peasant, one of the oldest of the Runolainen in the Russian province of Vuokinlam, who was by far the most renowned songman of the country, and from him he got many of the most splendid runes of the poem. And certainly the Kalevala, as it stands, is one of the world's great poems. It is perhaps hardly accurate to describe it as an epic. It lacks the central unity of a true epic in our sense of the word. It has many heroes besides Wainamoinen, and is properly speaking a collection of folk songs and ballads. Of its antiquity there is no doubt. It is thoroughly pagan from beginning to end, and even the legend of the Virgin Mariatta, to whom the sun tells where her golden babe lies hidden, "Yonder is thy golden infant, there thy holy babe lies sleeping, hidden to his belt in water, hidden in the reeds and rushes," is, according to all scholars, essentially pre-Christian in origin. The gods are chiefly gods of air and water and forest. The highest is the sky god Ux, who is the father of the breezes, the shepherd of the lamb clouds. The lightning is his sword, the rainbow is his bow, his shirt sparkles with fire, his stockings are blue, and his shoes crimson-colored. The daughters of the sun and moon sit on the scarlet rims of the clouds, and weave the rays of light into a gleaming beam. Untar presides over fogs and mists, and passes them through a silver sieve before sending them to the earth. Otto, the wave god, lives with his cold and cruel-hearted spouse, Velamo, at the bottom of the sea in the chasm of the Salmon rocks, and possesses the priceless treasure of the Sampo, the talisman of success. When the branches of the primitive oak trees shut out the light of the sun from the northland, Pico Mies, the pygmy, emerged from the sea in a suit of copper, with a copper hatchet in his belt, and, having grown to a giant's stature, felled the huge oak with the third stroke of his axe. Virocanus is the green-robed priest of the forest, and Tapio, who has a coat of tree moss and a high-crowned hat of fir leaves, is the gracious god of the woodlands. Otso, the bear, is the honey-paw of the mountains, the fur-robed forest friend. In everything, visible and invisible, there is God, a divine presence. There are 3 worlds, and they are all peopled with divinities. As regards the poem itself, It is written in trochaic 8-lined syllables with alliteration in the part-line echo, the meter which Longfellow adopted for Hiawatha. One of its distinguishing characteristics is its wonderful passion for nature and for the beauty of natural objects. Lemminkainen says to Tapio, "Sable-bearded god of forests, in thy hat and coat of ermine, robe thy trees in finest fibers, deck thy groves in richest fabrics. Give the fir trees shining silver, deck with gold the slender balsams, give the spruces copper belting, and the pine trees silver girdles, give the birches golden flowers, deck their stems with silver fretwork. This their garb in former ages, when the days and nights were brighter, when the fir trees shone like sunlight, and the birches like the moonbeams. Honey breathed throughout the forest, settled in the glens and highlands, spices in the meadow borders, oil outpouring from the lowlands." All handicrafts and artwork are, as in Homer, elaborately described. Then the smiter Ilmarinen, the eternal artist-forgeman, in the furnace forged an eagle, from the fire of ancient wisdom. For this giant bird of magic forged he talons out of iron, and his beak of steel and copper, seats himself upon the eagle, on his back between the wing bones. Thus addresses he his creature, gives the bird of fire this order: "Mighty eagle, bird of beauty, fly thou whither I direct thee, to Tuoni's coal-black river, to the blue depths of the death stream. Seize the mighty fish of Mana, catch for me this water monster." And Wainamoinen's boat-building is one of the great incidents of the poem. Wainamoinen, old and skilful, the eternal wonder-worker, builds his vessel with enchantment, builds his boat by art and magic, from the timber of the oak-tree, forms its posts, and planks, and flooring, sings a song and joins the framework, sings a second, sets the siding, sings a third time, sets the rowlocks, fashions oars and ribs and rudder, joins the sides and ribs together. Now he decks his magic vessel, paints the boat in blue and scarlet, trims in gold the ship's forecastle, decks the prow in molten silver, sings his magic ship down gliding on the cylinders of fir tree, now erects the masts of pine wood, on each mast the sails of linen, sails of blue and white and scarlet, woven into finest fabric. All the characteristics of a splendid antique civilization are mirrored in this marvelous poem, and Mr. Crawford's admirable translation should make the wonderful heroes of Swami song as familiar, if not as dear, to our people as the heroes of the great Ionian epic. The Kalevala, the epic poem of Finland. Translated into English by John Martin Crawford. G. P. Putnam's Sons. End of Section 80. One of the Bibles of the World.